George had an unexpected sit down. He had a couple interviews. One was a closer interview, but one was on the stage. I have both of them, but I think the good stuff is in the stage right now. Here we are. I believe, according to the timestamp, this is where he's going to start talking about Star Wars.
I was as surprised as anybody in the first one and the first three that everybody from 5 years old to 85 years old liked it all over the world, everywhere. And that was, I said, wow, because there are certain aspects of that movie which say, they would say, well, it's all white men. I said, it's not. Most of the people are aliens. And the idea is that you're supposed to accept people for what they are, even if they're big and furry, or whether they've got they're green and whatever. The idea is all the people are equal.
And that just destroys current Stan Disney logic where they're obsessing about, look at now we have black people here, there. George just said it. The aliens represented the biggest diversity push as it was meant to be. That accept people for what they look like in all ways, shapes, or forms. You don't need to have black people, Asian people, Indian people plastered all over the screen for representation and inclusion. We've always said, having aliens on screen, you don't get more not like a human than that. You don't. And this is one of those lines right now that has been plastered all over social media for the past 48 hours. But at the same time, it's one of the lines now that the stands want to ignore. They don't want to go near that because it destroys their narrative that Star Wars wasn't inclusive until Disney got their hands on it. So that is a truth they can't handle.
The only people that aren't, which was in there, are the robots. Well, you can't come in here. We don't like your kind here. So they were the only ones that were discriminated against, and that was a way of saying, people always discriminate against something, and sooner or later, that's what's going to happen. And we're already starting it with AI, saying, well, we can't trust those robots. I do it everything. I take my temperature. I have my, all my vital signs. Things, and if it comes out wrong, I just say, well, I don't.
Let's see if I can skip ahead here because I don't even talk about taking blood pressure.
But he did it for very little. But I gave him a percentage, but it was fine. We did that, but the other part of it was they said later on when they were making more movies, they said there's no women in the movies. I said, who do you think the heroes are in those films? What do you think Princess Leia was?
Thank you.
She is the head of the rebellion. She's the one that's taking this young kid that doesn't know anything and this boisterous, I know everything guy who can't do anything and trying to save the rebellion with these clowns. I said...
But that's a thing. The stance always want to say there hasn't been any female representation in Star Wars till Leia. I just yesterday because it was National Star Wars Day. I watched A New Hope. Yesterday.
Same here.
Leia takes control when she needs to take control, but then also is still ready to step aside when it's something she can't handle.
Yeah.
I mean,
for crying out loud, like her second scene or something like that, she stands up to Darth motherfucking Vader without showing fear. Like we saw this guy waltz in, the dramatic music, everybody's scared to death of him, and Leia's just cracking jokes at his expense. Like that is a woman who does not give a shit.
Foul stench.
Yeah.
Foul stench. And and George is just being George here. He says one thing that is stupid, but then within it all, he'll say the one thing that we've all been saying. And yet when he says, I don't know, I think it's this thing about the watching it grow up. That's what the Disney stands are going to latch onto. They're going to ignore all the rest of this stuff where we will actively criticize, yet at the same time actively agree with things he says, but they're going to latch onto the one thing. Let's keep going.
She's
I want to finish this up because we are over time now.
the hero of the movie. And it's the same thing with Queen Amidala. Even though she has Jedi
He just pronounced his own character's name wrong.
Immediately.
Amidala.
What?
That's funny.
on her side, she was still the hero prime mover. And they said, well, but there's no women, you know. I said, you can't just put a woman in pants and expect her to be a hero. You know, they can wear dresses, they can wear whatever they want. It's
Oh, women can be feminine.
Whoa.
Women can be feminine. And let's remember, this is a man that told Carrie Fisher there's no bras in outer space.
No panties.
No panties, no bras. Yeah, so George knows about femininity. We're gonna put you in that gold bikini and you're gonna like it. But now he also did that thing they want to latch onto, and I don't want people to think I'm ignoring it. That's what I'm going to say right now. The whole that Leia's the true hero of it all. Now he basically just said that he's making the point that she's a hero and that women heroes existed. Luke Skywalker is still the hero.
He still
Star
blew up
Wars.
the Death Star.
And it is still, as he has said, once again, this is contradictory George. Over and over again, he has said the 6 movies are Anakin's story, his fall and his redemption. It's that's the core of it. It's Anakin's story. So you have to remember when George is saying stuff, you have to remember how it all pieces together. It's a giant portrait, what his commentary is on his own stuff. And you have to understand where sometimes he gets carried away and when sometimes he's making his point. It's one of those moments where he's making a point about women having roles and they can be in dresses. And he said Leia's the hero. But remember, he said many times who the heroes are, who the story is about. He's just trying to make his point, and he got a little off track there. I'm not. Am I making excuses? I don't think I'm making excuses. I think I'm.
No, it's just George. He's
Yeah,
got a
George.
scatterbrain.
Yes,
And you
we
just
can hear
have
it.
You just gotta have to deal with it.
We're hearing it in his discussion here. He's pausing. He's collecting his words, and I don't and he has his faculties. This is not this is not Brandon level shit.
No.
George has all
This
his
isn't
faculties.
Alzheimer's or anything. This is still
Yeah.
how we talked while making the prequels. He's just
Yeah.
a scatterbrained individual who
This is
changes his mind. It's
massively
poetry. It
creative
rhymes.
individual. This is a massively creative man who always probably has a lot of ideas going on in his head, and he needs to like put the brakes on them to get the thought process lined up so he can make his own point. And sometimes those ideas conflict with each other, but because that's what the creative process is. It's a lot of chaos in there, and you have to trim it down and make it clean. And that's why some say he always needed certain people around him to rein him in, because his creative genius did need refinement over the years. That is kind of a belief that a lot of us share.
their brains and their ability to think and do and plan and be logistical, and you know that's what the hero is. You know, yes, all the women, they couldn't do lightsabers, but they could shoot guns and they could, you know. And we also did a thing where we didn't really we killed robots, stormtroopers, aliens, but we very rarely killed humans. You know, that was kind of
He blew them up in starships.
I thought he was going to say we don't kill women. That's where I thought he was going with that.
an idea that goes through the movie, but everybody thinks of it as a movie where you kill everybody, but we don't.
I got a question from the internet by Mathieu Bayarjon, and I think it's a beautiful question. I don't know if you remember the Danny Boyle movie Yesterday, who imagined a world without the Beatles. Can you imagine a world without Star Wars?
Well, yeah, I mean, it almost happened. And
Thank God it didn't.
I'm
It's,
gonna skip
so-
forward a bit.
you know, and I didn't, because I knew it would take me another 10 years to make those films. And I said, and I was 69.
Let me go back actually, because now that he's talking about why didn't you make the your sequel trilogy?
I had a different life, and I said, I'm gonna, you know, and I sort of said, because I had a baby girl, I got married,
This is him at this time of the sale.
I had a different life, and I said, I'm gonna, you know, and I didn't, because I knew it would take me another 10 years to make those films. And I said, and I was 69, and I said, I'm not gonna be doing this when I'm 79.
But he's coming back, guys. He's been coming back for 10 years, secretly fixing things, siding with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni against Kathleen Kennedy to end the Civil War. No, he's been counting his money and spending time with his family.
I want, it's time to let go and let somebody else do it.
Which was a mistake in one sense. He didn't. I can understand letting somebody else do it if you don't do it anymore, but he to quote him, and this is his quote. This is my favorite quote. He handed his baby over to white slavers. That is his quote. He said that. I think he understands somewhere in the chaos of George Lucas's scatterbrained mind, as we discussed a moment ago, he knows it was wrong to give it to Disney. He should have given it to somebody else, or should have kept Lucasfilm independent and handed over. And I mean, not to Kathleen Kennedy, but to somebody who gave a damn and would have just kept it going as it was.
Even though, like with Empire Strikes Back and some, I ended up having to be on the set the whole time, but it's like I was the only one that really knew what Star Wars was, and Gersh and I were really good friends, so it was like, and so I was like the consultant, the advisor who actually knew the world, because there's a lot to it. The Force, nobody understood the Force. Nobody, what they do is, and then they started other ones when I sold the company. And
ooh, that's going to be a very key point in the next week and a half, because Leslie Headland has her own ideas of what the Force is. We've had Amanda Stenberg and all of them talking about how the Force is really about choosing light and dark and defining yourself, and not necessarily good and bad because you choose one over the other. I mean, that's
no right and wrong.
No
gray
right
is
and
what
wrong.
Star Wars is always about, according to the one actor.
Yep. So George just said it right here. Nobody, since he sold it, understands what the Force is about. He just said that, but the stands, they're going to ignore that. They're going to ignore that. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to know that Rey is not a good representation of a Jedi, and what Leslie Headland's about to do is not a good representation of Jedi, Sith, and the Force.
They, a lot of those ideas that were in there sort of got lost, but that's the way it is.
That's the way it is. They got it. Disney got it wrong. That's what that is. Disney got it wrong. He just said that. I didn't hear things, did I? I heard that pretty clearly.
No.
It says Disney did it wrong.
If you give it up, you give it up.
I want to talk about your producer career. I mean, of course, you produced.
All right, I don't know if it's that. There's another line in here. Let's cut to our favorite Stan for the moment here, just because I want to wrap this up, because I don't want to look at the whole. We heard the important stuff there, but our favorite Stan, good old.
While you look it up, I got
it right here. Okay.
Well, Force Awakens, of course, is a terrible movie, but it did give us a great thing. That line from Han Solo, that's not how the Force works. I just constantly think that every time someone new says, hey, the Force isn't really about the Force, it's about this other made-up crap.
Yep. So, but we talked. I don't know exactly where that line was. It might have been in this one, Remainder There, or in the private interview you did. But our favorite still Stan Suggs quoted this. George Lucas says the new Star Wars projects have a lot of talent, great ideas, and production. I feel like they come from my children, and sometimes it hurts when they grow up and get far from you. Let's look at the whole disgusting films thing here. Oh, that's the whole thing. Okay, boom. And then Suggs has to point out the worst possible YouTubers are currently fighting back tears knowing George Lucas just praised Disney-produced Star Wars projects. We just watched him, in his own words, tear it apart and say they don't get it right. And he said in the past, they're white slavers. who've enslaved my baby, my children, my child. But this is all they care about, an out-of-context line from literally over an hour, almost 2 hours if you combine all his interviews past couple days of discussions. But that one little line is all these idiots need to say that, oh, we must be so hurt that he praised Disney Star Wars. Once again, George contradicts George. It's a fact of life. We accept it. We don't cry. We love him anyway. But I just countered everything you said right there with his actual own words. That contradicts what you think is good. So to try and play this game, as we said earlier, that they want to try and take George and use him as a bludgeon to beat us is ridiculous. They have no grasp of situation. Same idiots who, like we talked about last week, said that people were upset with Darth Maul's double-bladed lightsaber. They have no concept of history. They are constantly rewriting it to suit their arguments. But they can't. Because those of us who were there remember how it was. Those of us who actively talk about this stuff, who are on top of it, we are not going to shut up. We are not going to go away. We will refute every little bit of retardation they put out. And they have no real counter. And that's coming from the guy who screams positivity all the time. That wasn't very positive of him right there, was it? That wasn't very positive. Not at all. No, that's going after people. Huh. Anyway, final thoughts on this? Go ahead.
Oh, let's just say hypothetically that George Lucas, the only thing he said in this interview is everything I've said about Disney Star Wars to date is wrong. I think they're amazing. They're better than anything I've ever done. They are the peak stars. Let's hypothetically say he actually did say that in the most extreme sense of what Jacob wants him to say. That wouldn't change any of our opinions because we're adult. We make our own opinions based on what we see and what we deduce. We don't make our decisions based on what other people tell us to think, like these stands do. The studio tells them what to think, and they think it, whereas we think what we think on our own. Yes, we respect George Lucas, but we're not going to change our whole opinion, even if we went to such an extreme. He's made terrible decisions with Star Wars. He's not an ultimate person to look up to. And that's the case with every single person in this industry. I love Christopher Nolan as a director. I love a lot of his movies. He said stupid things. And I'm not just going to change my opinion on him or change my opinion on a dime because he said something that I disagree with. So it's actually our maturity that we're like, the George Lucas could have said what you wanted him to say, and it's whatever. You just think everyone in the world operates like you, in Jacob's case, where their opinions blow in the wind with whatever chosen person determines your identity is.
And they circle jerk it. They all have to have the positive opinion, whereas 20 minutes ago, we were pulling out knives over Gennady Tartakovsky. The knives are out. And because that's a healthy nerd debate. It's a matter of taste. It's a matter of how you feel about something. And that's okay. Because look at this. We're fine now. It was a fun little thing. I dropped the grenade on purpose because I had a feeling Dre was going to.
It's more funny than anything.
Yeah.
Adam, you old bastard.
But that's the point. We can be adult about this. We can have this conversation. We can have the difference of opinions, and we're okay. And we can understand that George. I know that you're in trouble there. It's bad. No, you're fine. George can say the dumbest shit in the world, but like Jed said, we may not appreciate what he says, but that doesn't change the fact that I respect what he did to create Star Wars, and I love him for doing it. These are mutually exclusive feelings. I can have two different feelings at the same time about this stuff. But these stands can't. It has to be their way, and we have to be the villains in their story. Because in 20 years, the sequel trilogy will be beloved, and we're going to be wrong. No, in 20 years, Disney Star Wars ain't going to exist. It's not going to exist. I am a firm believer. Disney Star Wars ain't going to make it out of this decade. It's going to be done by the time we get to the 30s.
You get no argument from me there. You know what's about to come up on 10 years next year?
Yeah.
Can you believe it? As far as the films are concerned?
Yeah.
10 years.
10 years. And what have they done? I know what they've done. They didn't make back the purchase price.
Sure haven't.
That's what they've done. They haven't made the money back. Anyway.
Get those tax write-off, Disney.
Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Check out my gaming channel at Renaissance Nerd Arcade, and follow me on X Twitter under @TheRedNerd. Thanks again for watching. Take it easy.